Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Paratalk. And on this episode, Tom and I are going to investigate UFOs. Are the aliens our friends, or are they here to do us wrong? Anyway, without further ado, let me bring in Tom, and we'll get this show on the road. Hello, Tom.
Hello, hello.
UFOs.
Yep.
Exactly. Where are you on that?
I'm kind of I'd call myself a casual UFO enthusiast. I think the problem is I have with talking about UFOs is there are so many people out there that seem to dedicate a large portion of their time to researching, and they've all formed their different opinions on it. So I always get a bit worried when I start talking about these things that, you know, I'm coming from it from a bit of a casual observer type of background. That I'll say something and then I'll hear people go, no, that's wrong. This was actually disclosed and all this stuff, and you know.
Yeah, I know it over the last few years, UFO, the whole UFO topic and the whole UFO debate has got quite serious, and people do take offence if you go down a certain avenue or have a certain point of view, and people can end up arguing and falling out with each other, which is kind of sad, really, when it gets that bad. But what I was going to ask you was, when did you first sort of get into the whole, aliens and UFOs and stuff like that? Was it something you grew up with, or is it something you've sort of?
Yeah, kind of. I think I've always been interested in like anything spooky and weird since I was like really young. I can't remember how young I was when I first became interested in stuff like that, but I think when I started to get into the whole UFO thing was probably when I was about, I don't know, 13, 14. I can't remember the exact date, but there was a magazine that came out called The X Factor. And this was before the TV show The X Factor. I think it was actually trying to cash in on The X-Files, the TV show.
Yeah.
And this magazine just covered all kinds of weird stuff, from spontaneous human combustion and big cats. And it had a whole thing on Roswell and Area 51 and UFO sightings. So I collected all those magazines. I even there was like a binder that you could buy, like a special X Factor binder where you could put all your magazines in. I spent ages building that collection up. I don't know what happened to the magazines. They're probably in my parents' attic somewhere. But yeah, that's when I started properly getting into all this weird stuff, reading the X Factor magazine.
There were a few. I remember being a kid, and obviously The Unexplained and Arthur C. Clarke and all that stuff. Yeah. Everyone remembers that. And there were other magazines as well. There was one called Encounters, which was kind of revolved around the whole UFO thing. That was like a glossy magazine. And there were a few others that I remember buying, going down to W.H. Smith's and have you got my magazine? You put it on order.
Yeah.
Remember going to a magazine shop and you go, we don't do that one. You have to order it, and then every week you have to go there and pick it up, and they put your name on the back, and you got to prepay and stuff like that. I remember that. But no,
that was a bit of a highlight though. Going down to news agents and getting a new magazine. I think I progressed from going down every day to get the Beano to suddenly getting the X Factor magazine.
But they were great. They were like glossy magazines. They had a lot of information in them. You could get a good read out of them, and it was stuff that you could go back to. And obviously, we all had opportunities to go to the library, but this was something a little bit sort of directed at what your interest. And there were loads around. I mean, you don't get that. Well, I suppose there are still those magazines around, but it's all very sort of homegrown now. It's sort of individuals that make small amounts.
Yeah.
But back
then,
some
of them, I think there's one called Nexus, which I think, I don't know if that's still going, but that's quite a niche, but it deals with a lot of paranormal stuff, but in a much more, like 14 Times I quite like, but that's a lot more, that's quite a broad, that's, aimed at a broad audience. I think Nexus is much more, it's got really long articles, really niche articles in it about, I remember reading one about like the pomegranate and how it had paranormal properties or something there. That's quite an interesting one, but yeah, they don't make them like they were back in the 90s and the 80s.
Yeah, it's all kind of like gone digital. It's all online. And obviously, it's a lot cheaper to do it online, and do PDF magazines and stuff, but it was something about buying a magazine or getting a magazine and going home with your Panda Pop and your Spangles and reading your magazine, and it was great. And you'd lend it to your mates and never get it back, because we all had mates like that who borrowed stuff and go, "Oh, I'll give you that back." Clearly they didn't. They lent it to someone else and completely forgot. But that's another story for another day. Anyway, UFOs. We're going down the UFO rabbit hole today. We're not going to go too deep, because if we do, this will turn into like a 4-hour episode, and we gotta watch the how long we talk for, because we've got to keep the YouTube and the algorithm gods happy with what we know, how long we go for, lest they get angry and they punish us, apparently. Right. So UFOs, for most people, right? UFOs start around 1947 with the Roswell, and obviously, a little bit before that with Betty and Barney Hill, around the same, that same kind of bubble. Obviously there are others in that mixing pot where they've had experiences, Kenneth Arnold, people like that. But it's that kind of era is when it kind of started, and then from then the UFO history kind of evolved and things moved on. But what I kind of don't understand sometimes is that if you look back in history, there's other stuff that goes on in history where that also could be interpreted as an encounter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got a few little stories here, or accounts, or whatever you want to call them, and I want to relay them to everyone, and we're going to talk about them, because I think that religion, obviously back in the olden days, played a really, really, really big part in everyone's lives, because a lot of people, and I don't mean this in a detrimental way, but a lot of people back then, they couldn't read and they couldn't write. It was only like the rich people that were able to get some form of an education where they could read and write and stuff like that. But the poorer people, the everyday people, the real people, they didn't get those opportunities. So they could only learn things in a pictorial form, or in a belief what they were told. That's why when you go in a church and you have all these great big murals everywhere of damnation and stuff like that, you would go in there to do your Sunday worship, and the priest or the vicar would say, "Look, there's the pictures there. If you don't do what God wants, that's going to be you there. That man there, that's you." So that would scare people. They would do the right thing, mostly. But anyway, so I want to jump back to 74 BC for our first apparent UFO encounter, and this is in. Now, people know how good I am with pronunciation and words, how I am such a linguist that I'll most probably get all these words completely wrong, but, that's the way it goes. So this is ancient Anatolia, right? And this is described by a Greek historian, and what he describes and what he writes down in his little history book, of his accounts of what happened in those days. He wrote down that this was there was a war, right, between the Roman Republic and I think Pontus, right? And there was so if you can imagine these two great big armies, and they're going to go to battle, and they're in this kind of open field area, and they're ready to go to battle with one another. Now, all of a sudden, at the point of battle, right, they were stopped by what they described as a thunderbolt of flame that came down between the two armies. And in this big thunderbolt of flame, there's something what looked like a shape of a wine bottle, but it was silver in form. Okay, and this scared the armies enough to retreat away and go back and not have a war, right, and not fight. Now, we have to look at this in the context of religion and God and angels and stuff, because obviously that's the way it's going to be interpreted in ancient history.
Yeah.
What's your interpretation of what might have happened there?
I don't know. It sounds like your typical kind of tic tac shaped UFO sighting. I mean, what when you described this silver wine bottle shaped thing, was it like big, like a craft, or was it like
large,
the size of a wine bottle?
No, large. I would say from the description and from the pictures, it looks about the size, maybe a bit bigger than a large person. But obviously, back then their drawings were a bit iffy. Not everything was to scale, so it's.
But it wasn't like a tiny thing you could hold in your hand. No. It was like an actual large
like enough craft. To force the two armies apart. They took it as, I suppose, they took it as some sort of heavenly warning to say, pack it in now, go back home, and then they went about their business. But the thing is that they described this object as being made of molten silver. In the shape of a wine bottle. Like a liquid, like a movable, like it was moving, like it was molten. So like a fluid.
Yeah.
So
I've heard of other craft, like UFO sightings, where they've described them like that, like they can change shape, or they seem to be pliable in some way. And what about that column? Was it like a column of fire, or like like it shot down from the sky?
Yeah, it came down like a thunderbolt, like a straight down, and then it was this thing in the middle at the point. Judging from the images, the paintings, the drawings that had been produced to kind of describe it. But that was the first encounter. Now, if we move forward a little bit, a long way, not too far, but a longish way, 1561. Now, a lot of people are going to know this account. This is in Nuremberg. This happened on April the 14th, 1561. And it was this encounter kind of revolved around the sun. It was in a daytime encounter, and in the individuals that they first saw this two half moon shapes of red objects in front of the sun, dancing around the sun, and this drew a crowd. Okay, so people started to watch this. This wasn't something that just happened and stopped. This went on for a little bit. And as they watched this display going around the sun, the daytime sun, they started to notice other things appearing. And they were orbs or globes. They described them as globes, large globes, and also crosses and long cylindrical objects that all started to dance around the sky. And it was they described it as if these objects were fighting or at battle with one another. And this went on for some time until these objects slowly kind of lost energy or lost the ability to stay in the sky. And the witnesses described that these objects slowly fell to the ground. And when they fell to the ground, they kind of ignited and then just turned to smoke and disappeared. Now, it's a classic. It is a classic case, and this kind of encounter went on for like it must have been about an hour in total, about 60 minutes. That they were witnessing this phenomenon in the sky. Now, for all we know, this could be some form of natural phenomenon that they witnessed, and they put this kind of maybe a religious connotation over it. What do you think it might have been?
I mean, what kind of natural phenomenon could that be? I mean, the first one, I could imagine somebody making the argument that it could be something like a weird bit of ball lightning or something like that, that they've misinterpreted. But how could you see if they're, I mean, like definite shapes like crosses and half moon shapes? How could that be like a natural phenomena?
Well, one of the weirdest things to come out of this was after this event had happened and all these things have kind of, fizzled out, they also witnessed a large black spear-like object appear in the sky. And they, this to them was maybe what I would interpret it, some sort of message from maybe God or heaven or something. But when you think in context of today, if you presented this and said, well, they saw this, and you say, oh, well, clearly that's just, it's a UFO, it's an unidentified flying object, something's in the sky. And remember back then there was nothing in the sky apart from birds and clouds.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It reminds me of something else I'll maybe touch on a little bit later. But so there's that account as well. And I think
But that's a strange one, because it's like, I haven't really heard of a UFO, like a modern UFO sighting that's like that, you know, like tons of different shapes in the sky and things like that. You know, it's usually just like a few lights or a strange shape. But and the way you described it, it's like the sky was full of all these different shapes seemingly to battle each other, and then they fell to earth. That's quite a unique sighting.
Well, it reminds me of some modern day sightings that see multiple objects in the sky that seem to be either fooling with one another or moving around each other or anything like that. So it reminds me of that kind of thing. But this seemed to be some sort of exchange going on where they were obviously they describe it as a fight, a battle. So you know, we can only go.
Maybe that was just the way that they interpreted what they were seeing. Now, you know, it's
well, yeah.
Like you say, they probably thought it was like the angels fighting or something like that.
Yeah. I always have to, when I read early accounts of people seeing things in the sky, whether it's the day sky or the night sky, I always have to put my kind of religious head on and try and think in those terms of how someone back then would have interpreted that. And immediately I would think, they would see it as an angel, or they would see it as an act of God, or some sort of religious message that's being relayed to them. And I'm thinking to myself, that's how they might interpret it. But I'm also wondering where the aliens, whatever they might be, might have something to do with that, which I think we'll touch on in a little bit. But I just want to come to another case, which is an earlier case, which is 1639 in Massachusetts. A James Everall. Now he saw a large light in the nighttime sky as he was on his way to a place. If I got it correctly, it's called Muddy River. He was on his way, and he was on his way, and he saw this object in the sky, and it took the shape. He describes it taking the shape of a swine as it moved through the sky. Obviously, I suppose a swine being I guess a pig, as it moved through the sky. And he wasn't the only person to see this object. Other people that were with him at the time, and a little bit later also saw this object. But what's interesting about this encounter is that they walked and watched this display or whatever it was in the sky for a number of hours. They were traveling, and after that whatever it was had gone, they found that they were back where they started at the beginning of their journey. So we've actually got some, what I would say, missing time, or maybe an abduction. Maybe they were abducted. Maybe it came and took them, and whatever it did to them, and then put them back at the beginning of their journey. It's a very strange one.
Unless it was like warping space or something weird like that, to make them sort of walk around in a circle without knowing.
Well, it could be, but it's definitely a weird. That's a weird one. And of course, with these accounts, there isn't like heavy, research into them. There are accounts of people. I saw this, and somebody writes it down, and it's maybe in a newspaper or whatever, or in a book, or it's just told through the years, and that's it. There's like today we have somebody who has an experience, and people go and investigate. Back then, none of that. Yeah. It was an angel, or it was God, or whatever. But obviously, we can't miss out. 1896 to 1897, there was a spate of the mysterious airships in America. Remember that? People were seeing these airships that were popping up all around the place. And I think it was one time some individuals actually had a conversation with these humanoids that were on this airship, and they didn't understand what they were saying to them, but they were like waving to them and stuff. So so that's something else that people were seeing, and back in the day when there shouldn't really have been anything in the sky. I know it's on...
Yeah, that's kind of what makes them interesting, isn't it? Like these days, at least, when people try and dismiss sightings these days, it's usually, it's probably just some technology from, a military, or it's a Chinese spy drone or something like that. But when you go back to before flying craft ever existed, and there's no way to dismiss them as human technology. At least you could say there's some kind of weird weather phenomena, but it doesn't really fit the descriptions.
Well, I was thinking about these accounts, and obviously when you kind of put these historical accounts into modern day UFO experiences, I'm wondering now. Obviously, I have to make it clear here that anything that I talk about I haven't come up with this. This is something that people have written about for a long time. Jacques Vallée, he kind of wrote a whole book on this, where the UFO occupants, the visitors, whatever you want to call them, are they the ones that are possibly behind it all, in the sense of when you see something religious, to you it's a religious experience, but maybe they want you to see it as that, because at the end of the day, our brains are a receptor, and we receive certain things, certain information from our senses, from outside in the world. We perceive the world because we perceive it in the way that our senses translate it into our brain, etc. Now, if they're able to control that, then we are at their whim, really, because we are perceiving what they want us to see and what they want us to perceive and experience. Now, if they're flying around and they've been here forever, or a very long time, and we are on this planet through their permission, and it's not really our planet, it's their planet, maybe they're able to keep a check on us and drop in on us and maybe check people out, and they think, right, okay, what's in their culture right now? They're into the whole spirituality, and they're into religion. Okay, I'll go as an angel. I'll put my angel suit on, or I'll program my smartwatch to be, today I'm going to put my angel mod on, and that's how we perceive them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it could also be a way of you could also have, if you had a sighting, you might be scared to tell people in case they thought you'd seen a demon or something like that. So it could also be a way of, there could be way more sightings than have been reported, and this sort of whatever religious beliefs the people, if they've been programmed to have certain beliefs, they could be like less inclined to want to talk about their experiences, because they might be thought of as like I don't know, a witch, or having been possessed by demons or something strange like that. There could be all sorts of sightings that have been suppressed because of some kind of religious belief that's been instilled in people.
Well, things like witchcraft and sorcery and all that stuff, alchemy, that was all a no-no back then. And if you were caught to be doing stuff like that, you would either be strapped to a chair until you were drowned, or burnt at the stake. So I can understand.
If you start telling people that you've been speaking to strange creatures, that's conversing with demons, isn't it? It's a big no-no. So
I'm sure at some point people would, some people in a religious context, they would look at these individuals, these whatever they are, occupants, and look at them as demons. Look at even today, some people say, "Oh, you can't trust them."
Yeah.
There was I can't remember his name. There's a whistleblower that just came out. We're going to talk a little bit about the whole whistleblower thing, but there was a whistleblower that I'm really trying to think of his name. He came out and posted some stuff. I think it was originally on Reddit, but it's some stuff that he's been talking about, and he talks about how
David Grush guy.
No, not David Grush. No, he is somebody I want to talk about as well. But this is another individual.
Yeah. There's been a few whistleblowers recently, hasn't there? It's hard to keep track of them.
But he tells the story of how these greys have, as I say, been around on this planet for a long time, and they're not the greys. They've got this kind of this name, the Zing, or there's something. They're called something, and they're not benevolent. They're not malevolent. They tolerate us, and they basically said, don't get involved with what we do, because if you do, we'll just destroy you. And apparently one fighter jet, well, people have already been killed by them, and even one fighter jet, two fighter jets actually, chased a Tic Tac like UFO, and they were trying to intercept it. I don't know what they mean by intercept. I mean, I don't know, film it, track it, or whatever. But the Tic Tac UFO basically disintegrated one jet instantly, and all that was left was smoke. And the other jet had to turn around and hightail it out of there. And as the pilot was hightailing it out of there, all these small objects left this Tic Tac object and surrounded the aircraft and caused the aircraft to, like, as if struggling to fly it. And then after a few moments they left the aircraft and went back to this other Tic Tac type object, and the pilot then was able to regain full control and fly off. And that was more of like a warning, like, we can do whatever we want, so don't mess with us. And I'm starting to get to the point where I'm starting to think, now, I'm not going to go, I mean, somebody like Dr. Stephen Greer, who, I mean, disclosure is a thing now, and everyone's talking about it. And even the governments of the world, and obviously America has got the highlight at the moment where everyone's talking about it. And we've got all these whistleblowers coming out, talking about, I worked in a secret program, and, I did this or I did that. So you've got all these kind of people coming out around the world. But I'm still thinking that back in the day, 23 years ago, 22 years ago, when Stephen Greer had the Disclosure Project, and he had all of the people out doing their thing, made a film of it, made a video, had all the press there, and they talked about what they, each individual did a declaration and all that stuff, and they talked about what they were doing. And we're 20 odd years down the road, and it's kind of history repeating itself. But we're getting a little bit more now, and we're finding out a little bit more. Now Stephen Greer says that aliens they're friendly, and they don't want any harm. They just want to, be nice. And yet there are others out there that say these creatures, you cannot trust them. They're not hundreds of years ahead of us. They're maybe hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us. And the technology that they possess is, to us, the way they see us is we're just weeds on the planet. And that what's important is the planet to them and not us. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've heard that I've heard the idea that if they were hostile towards humans, they would have just wiped us all out already. Because if they've got such good technology, it could. I think the theory that we're just like incidental to them and they're more interested in the planet makes more sense. But I don't know. My neighbor is really into Stephen Greer, and he's like, I don't know that much about it, the whole Disclosure Project. Like, he's been telling me a bit about it, but growing up, I didn't really hear about that whole side of things. But the interesting thing is that, like, he's been telling me about it for a few years, and he's saying, like, right, there's going to be disclosure coming. Like, he's heard from that Stephen Greer, right? They're gonna do like a disclosure thing, but it's not going to be real. It's going to be like a false flag,
like a false flag. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's well into that Stephen Gray stuff, and he's been so. This was before all these like whistleblowers started coming out. My neighbour's been telling me for a few years, like, oh yeah, they're gonna do something soon in the next couple of years. Something's gonna happen, and they're gonna like, come out. The government's gonna say something, but it's not gonna be real. Like he's been telling me that for years.
The fake alien invasion.
Yeah. So
yeah, I heard about that, and apparently there was going to be that the aliens are here to do bad to us, and we need to have more control over you. We need to build up the military, so that we need the space force. We don't really know what's outside of this planet. People, I mean, there are people with high powered telescopes that have recorded stuff that is completely bizarre, which is in very high Earth orbit. I don't know what those are. They look like platforms. I don't know what kind of platforms. I think that, and also things like there's a big thing about Antarctica at the moment, and people talking about Antarctica, and there are whistleblowers coming out saying that there's stuff out in Antarctica and that the base is out of there. Will blow your mind. If you find out the technology they're using, the technology that they've got out there can cause a planetary phenomenon, in the sense of they can control earthquakes and weather and all that sort of stuff. It's bizarre.
There's so many different things. One thing I've heard about the Greys, the intention of the Greys, is that they've been around for years, and the people they've been abducting, a lot of them, they've been kind of mind controlling them to so that when the invasion happens, these people have been like programmed, so they'll suddenly like click into gear, and they'll
like
act
sleepers,
as
like sleepers.
Yeah, and what they'll do is they'll be like the crowd control. And he's saying that people have been programmed so that when there's a big scare and everyone's running somewhere, I don't know where they'd be running to, these sleepers will be stood on the street corners directing people, right, go down there, and this will be part of like some invasion, or this will be when the Greys suddenly kick into gear, and I don't know what they're going to do, abduct us all, or take over the world, or kill everyone. I don't think he's gone too much into what they actually got planning, but this is the idea is that the Greys have been here for a number of years, and the abductees are like these sleeper agents, but also at the same time, the Greys are sort of among us as like hybrids or in disguise or something like that. So I don't know. I keep hearing like so many different things from different people about what the intention is. This is a problem I have. We're talking about it. Everyone's got their own idea of what the truth is, but there's so many different conflicting ideas.
The problem is you can fall down the rabbit hole and you can become fixated on one single thing, on one one kind of mindset. And if you do that, it can become very frustrating, and also can become very difficult to move forward. The way that I kind of look at the whole subject is to have a open mind on all of it. So anything that anyone says, I will consider, because I don't have the information to turn around to that person and go, you're talking a lot of old rubbish. I haven't got that, information. I can only listen to that person and go, oh, interesting. And that's it. And then put it on the shelf with all the other stuff. Well, for example, and I'll give you an example. There are those that believe that, that sounded like the beginning of Battlestar Galactica then. Anyway, that was just a throwback then to the to those people that used to watch Battlestar Galactica back in the late 70s. I must get out of the... Anyway, I won't say that again. So basically, some people think that the Space Brothers, the aliens, the Greys, whatever you want to call them, come from another planet far away in space somewhere, wherever it might be. I'm not going to say a place because there are so many places. I don't know. Now, some people say that they travel here and that they have got some ability to travel faster. Well, you would need to travel faster than light. Therefore, you would need to bend space. Either that be a wormhole or some sort of dimensional jump, because even at the speed of light, it would literally take years to get to the nearest star with a planetary system and all. It would take multiple years, and that's a pretty long way to go if you're doing that all the time. You know, imagine going to work and back, and it takes like 40 years to get there, and 40 years to get. What a nightmare! But the thing is, it's like, so they must have technology if they're doing that to able to flick a switch and then kind of just do this kind of warp speed or something. But not a lot of people, I'm not saying no one, but not a lot of people. You don't hear a lot of people talking about what if they're already here and they've been here for forever, and that we came out of the fish pond and we went up the trees, and then they saw all that and they watched it and they thought, we could do something with them. They're useful. And then so many millions of years into our evolution, we had this kind of jump, this technology jump where we used to live in caves and run around with our spears and our stone hammers hunting beasts so that we could eat. And then all of a sudden we started to farm and build stuff. And we kind of made this jump very quickly. I mean, I don't mean like in a week. I mean, over a long, a stretched period of time, many, many generations. But we made this kind of jump where we started to think, oh, maybe I should grow some cabbage. Maybe I should build a little hut rather than live in that stinky cave with that fire, which makes you smell of smoke all the time. So, we had made this kind of jump. So maybe someone came down and said, hey, you don't want to do it like that. I want to do it like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
And they could have been here from the beginning. You mean, or
maybe
they came down from.
Maybe I don't think people own anything. I think you are the caretaker of all of everything that you have. You possess something, you use it, and then when you expire, you pass it on. So you never really own anything, but in the sense of a planet, or you don't really own it. It's not yours. It's like our planet. It's not our planet. It's a planet we live on. We happen to be here. It's like they say our moon. It's not our moon. It's the moon, where there are things. We get into this mindset where we own everything. And I think that these, whatever they are, may have evolved to the point where maybe they are the caretakers of this planet. Interesting fact, there's a lot of people...
It could be, yeah. I feel like I know this idea that they kind of live among us and they're kind of directing things behind the scenes, but if there was such an advanced life form, would they really be satisfied living for thousands of years, just hiding in the shadows in some way? Would they not want to be the creatures that are like running around on the surface doing all the fun stuff? Like, would they, what are they doing? Are they like hiding out in buildings somewhere? Are they under the earth in some kind of hollow earth situation? Where are they all if they've been here for thousands of years? And I don't know, it couldn't be very satisfying to just live behind the scenes directing the whole of humankind, could it? I don't know.
Well, put it this way. Everyone in our age group at some point has had sea monkeys. You had sea monkeys?
Yeah.
Now, when I had sea monkeys, right, I looked in a comic and I saw the little king and the queen and all the little children. The king sea monkey had a crown. The lady was like doing some cooking and the children were playing. And I thought, and it was like $4. And I went, I want that. And I went to the, where did I get my sea monkeys from? I think I went to the joke shop in town, in the market, and he had like a box of sea monkeys, and I thought they were like little people, and I walked in and I go, have you got any? Hello, sir. Have you got any sea monkeys? And he said, yes, son. There's 75 pence a packet on the side there, and they were in packets, like you get the packets you used to get space dust in. They were like in packets that.
I remember them.
And I bought some, and I couldn't understand how all these little people were in this packet. And I was so careful with this packet on the way home. I thought, I better not crush it because I don't want to kill I'm literally God now. These are my people. And I got home and my mum had bought me one of those, you could buy those kind of plastic cylinder like fish tank things for them. And she'd bought me one. It was like a yellow one with a yellow base. And they had like little things, like shapes in them and stuff. And they were like all different colours. She bought me like a yellow one. And she filled it up with water. You had to put, I can't remember what you had to put in the water. You had to put something in the water. But anyway, she did all that for me. And I got this packet. It said you had to rip the packet and then pour in the dust. It was literally dust, right? Into the water and then leave it. And I thought to myself, poured it in, and it was like a cloud of dust that went in. And I just didn't understand. Where's my little people? Where's the king? Where are the children playing football? I don't understand what's going on here. I literally thought I'd been tucked up, you know. 75 pence gone. And I come back the next day, I went to bed, and I woke up in the morning, and I saw these little things like swimming around. And
Yeah.
I got quite angry, to be honest. I was at the tip of getting that container and pouring it down the toilet and flushing it away and becoming a mass murderer, destroying the. And do you want to know, right? That's how sometimes I think the aliens are. They sometimes look at their little sea monkey thing and they think, man, they've merely messed things up. I think they need to go. Today's the day they go down the toilet. You know?
Yeah. I can see that. But in your analogy, the humans are the sea monkeys in their little tank.
Yeah.
And the aliens are the gods outside. But like, where is the outside of that tank? Like where are the aliens, like out in space, or are they hiding out somewhere on Earth, or are they like
possible?
I've heard the theory that they're like they can shift between dimensions, so you know there could be a whole alien civilization living alongside us, but they've just sort of shifted a few degrees into a different dimension, and there's this whole other world that we don't see. I mean, that's the thing I don't get, is if there is aliens like all controlling all our lives, like, you know, are either they're just hiding, they've been hiding for like millennia and they're just, you know, living this really secretive life, or they've got somewhere else to be, and you know, a different planet, or is it a different dimension or somewhere else? That's the thing that interests me.
Well,
like, where are they?
Well, they might be in plain sight. I think that if you are that technically advanced, and you have a you know, that you have a goal to set, or a mission to do, or whatever it is they're doing, you know, if they are doing anything, I think that they're able to not be in our spectrum of vision, in the sense of maybe they are able to, in layman's terms, cloak themselves from us, or maybe, put it this way, the human eye can only see things at a certain speed. Beyond, if you ever, here's a metaphor, or an idea. If you have a car going along the road and it's going like really, really fast, or a plane flying really, really fast, if it gets to a certain speed, to us, that object, even though it's going like super, super, super fast, to us it vanishes. We can no longer see it, because our eyes cannot process that data quick enough for us to see that object. So to us, it's literally vanished. It's literally gone invisible. Now, it's like a lot of these UFOs that people say, it was in the sky 1 minute and then it just vanished. I think it's still in the sky. It's just going really bleeding fast. It's shot away so quickly that our brains cannot process what we were just seeing, and it's gone. Or they're able to slip out of our spectrum of vision. We see in a very narrow band of vision. The spectrum of vision that we see is quite narrow. I mean, animals have got quite a wide, they see differently anyway, but their perception is different. But ours is quite narrow. So if you're able to move yourself out of that area of vision, maybe to us, they vanished, but they're still here. They're still walking around, picking flowers or whatever they're doing, taking readings or whatever. But for example, Whitley Strieber, all right? I don't know if you've read the books Communion and
I have. I've listened to some interviews with him, but I've not read the books. I want to.
Well, I suggest anyone who's into that stuff, like the alien stuff and abductions, read them. They're really good, especially Communion. It's a really, really... I mean, I read that book in like 3 days. I just couldn't put it down. It was just drags you in. But anyway, there's a part in that book where he had a lodge, a cottage or a log cabin in a wooded area above New York, I'm pretty sure it's New York, where he lived with his wife, his late wife. And they used to go to this place and, to have to spend time there. And they used to have friends there. And after a while, when he started having these experiences in the woods, he had these abduction experiences and stuff, he likened it to the poltergeist phenomenon, where he would go to bed one night and go to sleep, and in the morning he'd get up and things would be different. Things would be moved around. Things would go missing in the cabin, where he would put stuff down and it would be gone, and then a few days later it would turn back up again. It would be, it would like, where did I put my keys, sort of thing. And he talks one night about having an experience where these in a room watching telly, and he feels like he's not alone, that there's someone else in the room with him, and he could feel the presence of someone near him, but he couldn't see them. Now that likens me to someone with a magic belt on or something who's able to cloak and has maybe stood there watching, studying them, seeing how does he watch telly. They make some notes here, and you get that feeling, that instinct that you're not alone, because you're picking up on that frequency, that whatever, I'm maybe way off. I'm just, I just liken it to that. So maybe, I don't know, but with the whole UFO, where are they? I think that there may be, the most likely thing is they're not in some mountain somewhere, or they're not, maybe they might be inside the earth, I don't know. But there's two options to me. They're either on the moon, that's where their base is. They're on the moon, the dark side of the moon, the back of the moon, that's where they kind of hang out. That's their crib. That's where like Alien HQ is. That's where they do all their stuff, and they come to visit Earth, and then they go back there. Because if you're in a UFO that can go from, 0 to whatever speed in no time at all, getting from the Earth to the moon is going to be easy. It's going to be like 20 minutes and you'll be there.
Yeah.
So it could be that, or it could be in our seas, in our oceans. If you look at how deep some of our oceans are, look at where the Titanic is, like 2 miles down. There's very, 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 very hardly nothing apart from a few probes, and we now know that some people have been that deep, but we now know that very little is down there when it comes to us. There's no, we don't go diving down, or we don't know what's down there. It could be, we're still discovering things that are down there. So it could be that if they've got an object that can travel at those vast speeds and go into space, maybe, I don't know, it must be able to withstand those kind of pressures. They must be using some sort of physics that can work against that. I don't know. I'm certainly speculating, but when you look at all the pieces together, and I think that with this whole disclosure thing, maybe some of that's going to come out. Maybe they're going to start talking about these individuals that maybe are on the planet and we're looking in the wrong place. And this is where I wanted to bring up. You mentioned him earlier. What was his name? David Grush. With the whole disclosure thing.
Yes.
Now, have you seen the interview that he did?
I haven't. No, I've read about it, but I haven't watched the interview yet.
Well, he says a lot of things, and he's legitimate, right? The guy checks out. The thing is with a lot of whistleblowers is that you have to take it on merit that they are who they say they are. And also, they can't say, oh, well, here's this and here's that. There are a lot of them out there. I mean, with Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project, all those people that were saying stuff could prove that they did what they did. They weren't there, otherwise they would not be there. Now, this geezer's the same. He's like, he was in the military, and he had all the clearance, and he'd seen things, and he's talking about what things he's experienced, and it's first-hand stuff. The thing with the whole disclosure hearings is they don't want people who are like, well, I know this bloke that he had they don't want that. They want the geezer that the bloke he's talking about. They want him, and they want him to come forward, and they want to prove that the guy is who they legitimize who they are. That's what they want. Yeah. And another thing at the moment is, which I've got another twist on something, but with these disclosures and people coming forward, I think it could go one way or the other. It could be, there's a lot of people out there that are really, really sort of hoping for disclosure. Now, say that happened tomorrow. Say that they turned around and said, yeah, 70 years we've been fibbing a little bit, but the aliens they're real and they're here and they're not very happy. What do you think might happen?
It depends who was saying it, really. Like you say, the problem is when, like, as you say, we need these legitimate people to come forward, but there's so much mistrust that if some government official came forward and said, yeah, there are aliens here, they could pull out a video of like, look, this is a craft that we've retrieved. This is the pilot flying it. It's an alien. I'd be instantly mistrustful of that. I think I just feel like I've been primed to not trust anything a government official says. So, how would you ever know? Like, also because it's so easy to fake something with CGI these days.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I think maybe I'd need like something to fly down in front of me, land, an alien to get out, take me up back to their home planet. I'll be like, oh, okay, I believe it now. I don't know. I feel like I'd be instantly mistrustful of any kind of disclosure that came out from some kind of official force.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm very distrusting of any politician. Anyone that is a politician, I'm immediately like, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah. I'm very distrusting because
the David Charles Grush, like the fact that he's like he's from the military and stuff. It's either that makes him more believable because he's not just some crazy off the street. He's got
all the background.
Yeah, or you could say that he's some kind of disinformation agent and he's been prepped by the government to put out this information to sort of what's it called? Like discolor the truth and set people on a different path so they don't go down some routes.
He's like a controlled opposition.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I always think that's the problem with this disclosure stuff.
I tend to when I see all the UFO stuff, I find it fascinating. I find what's going on quite exciting actually. I always keep my mind open, and I look at what governments around the world are doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's a huge push for net zero. There's a huge push for everyone to get into an electric car or get onto an electric motorbike or electric push bike or that. Get rid of fossil fuels. Don't heat pumps and all that. Get rid of fossil fuels. No more burning coal, etc. No more of that. Everything's going to be by 2033 or some 10 years or whatever. We're not going to be using fossil fuels anymore, and there's going to be a huge push for that. And governments seem to be really pushing that at the moment, and it's kind of come out of nowhere in the last few years. Everyone's there's always some way that they exert more control over you for these green policies, like these 15-minute cities. You can only travel a certain distance, and then you'll be monitored. You will put in these cameras to check where you are at all times. Pay per mile and stuff like that. Maybe, Roger the alien, Captain Roger, who's in charge of, the aliens, has come and said to the world governments, sort out your planet, clean it up, or we'll clean it for you, and we'll clean you away. So you've got so long to do something. We're not going to do it for you because we're not here to do that, but you need to do it, and you need to sort it out quickly because you're damaging the planet. Now, I have my own thoughts on climate change, and I have my own thoughts on this whole net zero and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing that you put less you put less pollutants into the air, and you can have a cleaner place. But I don't see those in power doing the same thing. It's more of a case of do as I say, don't do as I do, and that's the problem we have at the moment. With this whole kind of push to net zero and to electrify everything and have electric cars, which, let's be honest, to the average person are pretty unattainable because they are like super, super expensive, and you can hardly charge them anywhere, and they are limited. The distance. I was going to buy an electric motorcycle. I thought, I ride a bike at the moment. Maybe if I sold that and bought an electric bike, I'd be doing my bit. And it would save me on fuel, and I wouldn't have to pay, other things as well, and I could get a grant. And then I looked at how far it goes, and I was thinking, literally, where am I going to charge it? I don't have a garage, I'd have to buy a bike that the battery comes out, and it's just too much hassle at the moment, and it's not really affordable. Looking at a decent one, you're looking at £10,000. It's like it's crazy money, and I think that this is being whole pushed at the moment. And the only thing I can think of is that the whole disclosure, net zero. There's some connection there. There's some connection with all of this, and I don't know what it is.
The way I see it, well, this is one possibility. Is that like I kind of agree with you about the whole green net zero thing, like, because I've always been quite into like nature conservation and all that, and I'm all on board for environmentalism and all of this stuff. But I have noticed, as I say, every new plan they implement seems to be some form of extra control handed over to the government. It has some sort of controls
with it.
Yeah. And like even like the green, even like electric cars, this is. If you've got some car that the government can just switch off, stop you traveling somewhere.
Well, you don't have your vehicle.
Trying to get rid of cash. That's another one where all your money's digital and it's all like some kind of centralized bank digital currency that they can just switch on and off whenever they feel like it. They can take away all your money at the flick of a switch. I feel like if there's going to be a sudden push on all these things at once, and it's going to be like, all these different tendrils of control are going to suddenly close around us, there might be some pushback from the general public. But if they've got some great distraction that they can suddenly bring in, like, oh, look, there's aliens. And we're all like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
There's aliens. You've got to do something. This will give them a good excuse to suddenly like, oh, we've just got to... that distract you from this new push for extra control over the populace, but also just like give them even greater excuse for even more control.
It's kind of.
I mean, scary. I don't know if I believe that completely. Like whether that's that's not my like running theory, but that's just one possibility of why.
Yeah, it's good to sort of look at these options and look at the way that things could go. And the way that I look at it, if disclosure came tomorrow and they turned around and said, they're real. All the aliens are real and they're here. And they're our masters. They're, I think that, well, I'll be honest with you, there are some people who have become quite excited about it. And want to meet them and have a talk, ask some questions, interview them. But there are other people maybe in the religious side who are quite religious, which might look at them either as devils or demons, or they might look at them as, people from heaven or whatever, and they might expect, little Billy has got a bad leg. Can you fix it for him? Because you're really clever. That kind of thing. Because let's be honest, anything that is so advanced, even thousands of years advanced, would appear to us like magic. Let's be honest. If you're able to cure any illness simply by your understanding, their understanding of physics is maybe different to ours. And if they go, oh, you've got that sickness, oh, take that pill, and you'll be fine in the morning. And they take a pill and they're fine. To us, that's a miracle. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
But to them, it's just basic chemistry, because they understand far more about it than we do. So I'm worried that maybe that could happen, where they would be perceived as some sort of new, the Church of Bob the Alien sort of thing. and they would worship him as their Messiah, or there would be a pushback against them and think, you're not taking our planet. This is our planet. We're going to go to war with you.
Yeah.
You can't fight something that's like so advanced that you can't even see it half the time. So I think that there's all these different avenues that you could go down if disclosure came out. And I do think that any disclosure that does come out from these hearings will be very, very heavily controlled, and it will also be very, very carefully controlled as to what information filters out into. I did notice that the mainstream media, they kind of pick up on this stuff, and then they talk about it for a little bit, and then it just gets forgotten about. I think it's, we know that the media is controlled. We know that they are pretty much fed the information. There's no investigators anymore. You haven't got the guy with the hat and the cigarette and the long coat that goes out and I'm going to crack this case. There's none of that anymore. You got somebody just sat in front of an email going, oh, here's a story here. It's just been sent in. Let's publish it. That's what news is these days. So So I think
that they've been kind of dripped, over the years. They've kind of sort of fed us a little bit about these UFOs and aliens, but it's just the last few years they've really it seems to be much more that they're trying to get over the idea that it's sort of more acceptable to believe these things, and it's now entering more of in the past it's always been a bit of a fringe, it's something that crazy people were into, but nowadays it's much more like they're calling them UAPs. They've got a bit more of a... Well, yeah,
they've kind of moved away, haven't they? They've moved away from the UFO, and they've given it a new name. They've kind of rebranded it, so it's like UAP. Yeah. So they're talking about UAPs now. So when you go, so you mean UFOs? Oh, no, we don't mean... no, mental people. Yeah. All the mental people look for UFOs. We're talking about UAPs. Something completely different. It's the same thing. It's all the same. So I know what they're doing. They're trying to change the perception. They want to move away from the whole UFO thing. They wanted to change it, and they want to change people's perception of it. I understand why, in a way, they want it to make it more palatable, so that the larger population will take it more seriously. Because there are still a lot of people out there that you mention UFO, and they're like, "You're a bit mad, aren't you? You're a bit what? You saw an alien? Yeah, you're bonkers." There are people out there like that, and they don't want to know. You say to them, "What have you read on the subject?" "Well, I read nothing. I read it. I was in the Sun. I read it in the paper. It said it. You read it, yeah. So you were told what to think then, So it's like you haven't done any real research. You haven't read any books or read any literature that's done any. That infuriates me a little bit when you have people like that. And I always say, don't get me wrong. I always say it's good to be skeptical. A little bit of skepticism, a little bit of open-mindedness, it works well together, because you can always question yourself then and think, what am I being what am I being told to believe here? Do I need to sort of, do your own research as well as listen to other people? But I don't think it's good to blindly follow. That's not good. It's not healthy. And I don't think it's good to just scoff and make fun at people because they've had an experience that might be something that you might not be able to understand, or sort of, get into your understanding your noggin. But I just wanted to getting to the end of this episode now, but I want to mention a few more recent cases regarding UFOs in over here in Old Blighty. So I just want to just tell you these because it's relevant to what we're talking about, and it's relevant to the public seeing stuff. And I think that what we're going to do, Loughton and Essex, right, in Essex, this is like we were talking earlier, this is in September 2005. This is a case where they had like multiple orbs or discs of light or whatever you want to call them were seen in the sky, and this by a large number of people. And one of the weird thing about this experience people reported is when they were interviewed after the their experience, which didn't last that long, but they witnessed it. Is they all said that they had a feeling of being watched, that the orbs were watching them, that they were looking at them. They were.
I've heard that in a lot of other like strange encounters. It's like you just get an eerie feeling, like the hackles on your neck go up, and it's like being watched by something.
But in Romford, which is another place in Essex, And for anyone listening going, what's he on about, Essex? Ron, what's he on? I don't know where that is. Essex is just outside of London. So if you just think of London and then just look outside of London a little bit, Essex is kind of like there. And then Romford is a place in Essex. So a few days later in Romford, other people saw the orbs. I don't know if it's the same ones, but they saw orbs as well a few days later. So whether these orbs were doing like a tour of the area or they were popping up in different places, who knows? But that was one. And then basically 2020, right, in Norfolk, there was a UFO sighting. But did you know, I've heard this before. I find it, I don't know, I find it hard to believe. But apparently Norfolk in England is the UFO capital of England. There's the most concentrated. It's like over 33% or something like that of UFO sightings are in Norfolk. But that's just a bit weird. I don't know if I can believe that. But anyway, so in 2020, right, there was a rise of UFO sightings in the UK, as I just talked about. Now, I'm wondering, and also other people have brought this up as well. We had the stay-at-home stuff then, didn't we? No one could go anywhere. And everyone was kind of like, there weren't any flights well, there were flights, but the flights were drastically reduced. And there wasn't much going on in the sky. And if you remember, when we had the first stay-at-home thing, I'm staying away from saying what I'm saying, but you know what I mean. The first one we had, when we all had to stay in, the air quality went up drastically. And if you remember, we had all that lovely sunshine for like 2, nearly 3 weeks. Where is that now? We should be getting that right now. And it's raining outside. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, I've heard there's a heat wave. Where is it? It's been chucking it down for weeks.
Yeah, where is it? Where's that heat wave? For the last 3 days, it's been raining here. Or been wet and miserable. But anyway, so in 2020, 11 people saw an unexplained bright lights in the sky in that area. Once again, a large group of people. Now this is another one. Alfred Britve, or Britive. Oh, I don't know what his last name is. His name's Alfred. From Hampshire in 1983. Right. He saw a saucer near a canal, and he. This is quite a funny one. Well, it's not funny. It's kind of like it would be the. I would be quite miffed, I think. Maybe relieved, I don't know. Right, so he's going for a walk, right? And he's walking near a canal, and this is in Hampshire in 1983. And he's having a walk, and he sees this UFO, this saucer lands, and he thinks, what the hell's going on? I'm going to go and have a look at what's going on there. So he walks over to it, right? And the door opens, and he sees this alien, right? And he's like, oh my God, it's real. They're here. And he thinks for a minute, am I going to be, like in his head, he thinks, am I going to be abducted? In his head, he thinks, am I going to, is this it? It's my abduction. I'm going to be abducted. And the alien telepathically in his head says, no, you're too old. Now go away. Bit gutted. You're too old. He was 70 something. Imagine that. The alien like in your head going, no, mate, you're too old. Now just bugger off. On your way. So yeah, he had.
What did he describe the alien? Was it like a grey?
Little alien man. I suppose a little grey man. But he thought in his head at that moment, that's it. They're going to take me. I'm off to the moon or Alpha Centauri or wherever. And the alien's like, no, mate, you're too old now. On your way. On your bike. And then there's one more case which happened in London in 1955, Bexley Heath UFO encounter. Margaret Fry, I think I told you about this one, but Margaret Fry was on her way to the doctors when she had an encounter with a UFO. And this was also seen by her doctor and some nearby children. Now, apparently, this disc-shaped object landed at a road junction. So on the road, it landed at a road junction, stayed there for a few moments, and then it took off, and it was gone. And this was not only seen by her, but it was seen by the doctor she was going to go visit, and it was also seen for some children. So that's an interesting one. And there's another case of I did an account on it. The I can't remember the grey of the school kid that encountered a grey, and it was a ship that was landed around in some back alleys of a housing estate, and when he went round there, and there was aliens. There was all different aliens. There was like a Bigfoot. There was like a sea.
Oh, that's just down the road from me. That's the Gateshead Grey.
Gateshead, yeah, Gateshead Grey. That's
Gateshead. Yeah, that's like 5-minute walk away from my house. That area. It's
Is all the alleyway and that's still there? Is all
the alleyway still there? Yeah, it's all pretty much the same as how it was.
Wow, amazing.
The church. They apparently took the alien body to the church.
That's right.
That's all been converted. The church is still there, but it's all been converted
underneath, isn't it? Like an underneath sort of basement
there's a
area.
basement underneath. Yeah, and that's all been converted into like it's got like a cafe and like a craft shop in there and things, I think. But that's just down the road from me. That area. It's
wow.
There's a few weird places around there. There's a weird bridge that you can go under, and apparently there's like the ghost of a hanged train driver in there. It's just down the road from there. Like it's a little weird triangle. There's a building that's supposed to be haunted as well. It's quite a weird area. But
Tom, you should do a video on all the haunted points of your area and go visit them.
Yeah. It's Bencham Bank. It is. It's Saltwell Road. I think that alien encounter was on, but it's all on Bencham Bank. It's it's.
But it was all the houses, and there was a shop there, like a corner shop that he ran into because it was like the soldiers were marching, and he ran into a shop and told some soldiers that there was aliens in the and they came out, and apparently the soldier saw them as well, and was told not to talk about it. But it's a fascinating story, and the guy that I think he's dead now. He died a while back, but he always told his story, and it was always the same. I think Richard D. Hall did a video with him talking about it and took him to the area and stuff. But it was fascinating. But anyway, so we're coming to the end.
That was an early one, wasn't it? That was like, what was that, like?
No, that was
30s or something.
No, it was when he was a kid. So it must have been in like the 40s or something like that.
I think it was before all these like the popular alien sightings happened. It was
definitely
weird.
Earlier
than that.
There was that one, and there was the other one where the school kids were playing, and the craft landed in the middle of the road outside of all the houses, and all the kids saw the craft land, and it made a load of them sick. They were like in bed for days afterwards, and they reckoned that they had like a dose of like radiation poison. They were like nauseous and had upset stomachs and stuff. But and not only the kids saw it, but the mothers and fathers, the residents of the housing, the terraced houses, because it was like the road was really thin and it had houses either side. They were all like terraced houses. And for those that don't understand what a terraced house is, imagine a block of houses and all the houses are joined together and all the doors. They're not separate. You can't walk down between them. They're all like one row, and the roads are quite narrow. And that was up your neck of the woods as well. And the kids saw it, and and then the craft took off and left. But there's a few of those cases that happened, but they were that kind of fringe cases. But they happened like years ago, before it was like, as we say, everybody was seeing stuff. And of course, UFOs now. Not everyone's seeing them, but more people are aware. I think it's amazing that more people are aware of UFOs and have sightings than back in the day, because more people now, pretty much everyone I see is just walking along looking at their telephone. And it's amazing to see anything like that.
That's something, because as I've told you before, my neighbour, who's well into his aliens, he was always talking to me about them. And since he started talking to me about strange things like that, much more often when I'm walking the dog, I'll be looking up into the sky. Yeah. And the amount of things that I've seen, I swear to God, if you want to see a UFO, just go out at night and, go out a few nights a week or just walk around looking up into the air, because you'll see something. I have seen so many weird lights in the sky. Like I was walking the dog one night, was coming home, and this orange light in the sky just went across, and it was traveling too fast to be a plane, just shot across the sky. And then I thought, wow, that's weird. Well, it could have been a shooting star or something, but it wasn't quite fast enough to be a shooting star, and it was in the sky for too long, I reckon. But then immediately, something flashed across my vision to my right, and I turned my head, and I just caught sight of it. But when you turn your head so quick, and you don't get a clear look at it, and it was almost like, I describe it almost like a jellyfish, like a blue jellyfish in the sky, but it was so quick it was gone. But it just flashed across my vision. I would turn my head. I was like, "What was that?" And it was just up in the air, and it went like between the houses that I was walking next to. And it was just like almost like a transparent blue light, but like sort of like a half dome, like a jellyfish. I saw it for a second, but I do wonder how often I've just been walking around and not thought about looking up into the sky, just looking at my phone.
We just don't look up.
Yeah. So just walk around and look up into the air, because I have seen so many weird things since I've started doing that.
Yeah. I was shown a video a couple of weeks ago by someone I know who went out on they were camping in the middle of nowhere, and there was no light pollution or anything. It was just, they were pitch black, and it was a warm evening, and they were sat outside. They were like doing a tent camp, and they were sat outside in the middle of nowhere, and they were looking up at the sky, and they could see all the stars, and they weren't really looking for anything. They were just looking up at the sky, and he recorded on his phone. He noticed something going across the sky, and everyone said, "Oh, it's just it's maybe the space station, or it's a satellite that's just going across." But the weird thing was, when he showed me the video, it was going across the sky and it slowed down and then it sped back up again. Now, if that was a satellite or a space station, I don't think it would have done that. But why would it intentionally slow down? Is it trying to say, I know you can see me, so I'm going to do something now to let you know that I acknowledge that you see me? You know?
I've definitely heard that, and I've heard that the more you become interested in the idea of UFOs and seeing one, the more likely you'll see one, and it's almost like there's some kind of interaction between your intention and what happens in the sky.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it'll be interesting to see where this whole disclosure goes, and it will be interesting to see what information comes of it. But I was going to ask you before we end this episode. I want your final thoughts on where do you think we are with the UFO scene and everything at the moment, and do you think it's going to evolve into something more?
I think it's definitely going somewhere. I just don't know where. As I say, I definitely feel like the media's gearing up for something. I feel like they're drip feeding things to us now, and they're going to. It's almost like they're ramping up for some kind of big disclosure event. Also, just the fact that people are just seeing more and more strange things in the sky. I don't know whether that's just because it's kind of in the zeitgeist. More people are out there watching the skies, or what. But it definitely feels like things are ramping up at the moment. But I don't know. I really don't know where it's going to go. I'm going to keep open-minded. Like I know I said before, I'd be skeptical of any disclosure that comes out from the government, but I'm not going to immediately dismiss it all. It's just like, I kind of stay open-minded, but also I'm a little bit suspicious. So I've got no idea where it's all going to go, but I definitely feel like there's something coming. There's something there's something in the works, and I'm interested to see where it goes, but I can't really say for sure whether it's going to be a real disclosure or some kind of trick or what. Well,
that's an interesting note to end this episode on. So we are still waiting, and we're going to wait to see what happens, I think. But on another note, I just wanted to ask the listeners, if you've ever had any weird things happen. If you had a UFO encounter, or you've had a spooky ghost encounter, be sure to go to paratalkpodcast.com and send me an email, because Tom and I would like to hear about it. Because what we'd like to do is do an episode where we go through listeners' emails and discuss your your experiences, because I think that will make a really cool episode. And it would be fascinating because, someone's weird experience is always good to, delve into and give your opinion on. Who knows? We might have an answer for you. I doubt it, but who knows? Anyway, Tom, so what have you got going on? You got any new videos in the works, Tom?
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one going up today on my YouTube channel. It's about photos that look completely innocent, but they've got something creepy backstory, or there's something hidden in the image that is slightly sinister. I've got one I'm working on about the I don't know how you pronounce it, so this is going to be hard when I actually get to start recording it. It's called the Alyoshenka. Do you know that? It's like this
Alyoshenka. Is it Alyoshenka? I don't know.
Yeah.
Go to Google Voice and type it in and see what it says.
Anyway, it's some alien. It looks like an alien baby that was found in Russia.
Yes, I know the one you're on about.
They called it Alyoshenka. Some woman apparently found it, and then it disappeared. And anyway, I've got a script for that. I haven't recorded it yet. That's going to be in the works.
Excellent. And how's the gaming going?
Also, going good. I've started streaming on Twitch. That's going okay. Slowly building up my Twitch followers. I've got a gaming channel where I play weird horror games. It's fun. I like playing games, so it's fun to record it. And
good.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Well, anyway, thanks for coming on. Thanks for joining me. It's always fun when we do an episode together and talk about weird stuff. Thanks for everybody for listening. And if you can, give me a like, give this episode a share, tell your friends, because we need to get out there a little bit more. And any final thoughts, Tom, before we wrap this one up?
Just watch the skies, everybody. You'll be surprised what you see when you're just walking around watching the skies at night.
Oh, yes, definitely. Thanks for everybody for listening, and see you on the next episode.